biggest challenge was I was never able to find that person. We worked extremely hard to build that foundation. You need to build the roads first before you can build a city. And as we were building roads, we would get roadblocks. Things would crumble, rebuild, and that's okay. I was willing to sit through and wait for that, but I did have that intense desire to be able to kind of find the COO kind of role, the integrator role. For me, it's partly the area, partly who knows, situation, circumstance. That's what was missing for me. And I think had I had that, I would have been in a different situation.
Hi, David here. This week, again, I am sharing insights from a live group call that I had with my good friend, Mr. Alistair McDonald, several weeks ago. We took apart the whole DSO framework and the strategies and transaction variables that one needs to look at when considering making this move. This week, we're going to dive into more of the overall mindset and the provocations that a particular doctor took in taking his exit from the equity of his practice very early in life, and what that means for him, how he did it, some of the aspects of building the right team, bringing the right associates on, investing in the right infrastructure to build the roads before you build the city. I think you'll really enjoy this one. Give me some comments and some feedback on it. I'll talk to you next time. I had another thought, going back to what Amit was saying, and we covered all the DSO and PE and cost of capital. I'm not going back there, but I'm interested in I know I don't want to take the rest of the call on this because other people have thoughts, but since you asked Alistair, Amit, you said right out of the gate, you're at the almost at the 6-month mark, and you've been, quote, absentee from this group, not because you don't love this group, but because you've been following some aspirations in your own life that heretofore you have not been able to do because you've been in the grind, right? In a certain model that got you to where you were, no doubt successful, but not fulfilling all the other aspects, the four freedoms that you so much, and everybody, I think, wants to do. And the fact that you made a transition that so far is going well, I'm pumped for you. What you said was, and I'm not giving the words exactly right, but the feeling I got from you was, a lot of burdens have been lifted from you. You're still in the game. You're in the practice at a different position than you were before, and you're enjoying the heck out of that right now, and having these other freedoms to do these other things that you have been putting off for a long time. You've expressed that here in this group to me, to other people, and again, this is something we all feel. So could you just give us a little bit more of what's given you the, I guess, the permission? Is it feeling like you do have a backdrop of an infrastructure now that you didn't have before because it was all on you, and you really feel like your DSO partner has come in and backstopped a lot of the things you used to worry about, and you can take your foot off the pedal a little bit and take some time off? What exactly is it, if you can put a finger on it for us?
Yeah, I think it really is that back end support, because especially when it comes to insurance and collections, the HR processes, the recruiting, all of these things are components that, although I did have people on my team working on them, I was ultimately responsible and had to hold people accountable. And so they've brought a level of structure and accountability, which is similar to what I was doing, but they have more people on their team. They have people who are dedicated to marketing and billing and collections, and they are picking up on the claims that were not sent with the correct attachments, or all the small nuances with regards to HR benefits and whatnot. So all of those things used to eat at me, at the end of a busy day, and a lot of times I couldn't get to everything, and neither could my office manager or whoever else I hired. So it's really just so nice to have that back end support and a dedicated team to be able to do each of those functions. So
it releases you to go to a higher level in the things that you want to take on, whether it's in the practice, in the business, or outside, right?
absolutely.
So my question back to this group, and Alistair and everybody here, has outstanding practices that are also moving forward. How can everybody else here who is not currently partnered with a DSO to have the same kind of backstop that Amit has created through his his transition, how can any of the rest of you or us create that same feeling without necessarily going with the DSO? Not saying the DSO was a bad move, not at all. But that's kind of what Alistair says. It's like, you know, you've got choices here. So I'm just trying to get that feeling from him. What has changed for him to allow him to do this while he's still in a business setting and still doing some of the things he loves to do, but not the things he didn't like to do. That's my big question. And there's some smart people here. I'd love to hear from Matt and from Tom. Kevin, you just spoke a lot, and I know where you're going. Daniel, you bring up a lot of great provocations. Ryan Webster's, I think, in the backdrop here, again, great practice. What's still holding any of you back from having the same feeling that Amit has? I guess that's my question. And not saying he has it all right, but he's achieved a great move forward. How else can other people get there?
We have, like, I don't have to be fully responsible for 100% of everything. It was always a 50-50. But then when we hired a really good human and trained her with like massive intent, she then helped us build like infrastructure and then redundancies. So I think I have the feeling that Amit has, but it's because, for example, I have a billing manager and I have an administrator who supports my billing manager. So for me, if I could reduce it, it's just having individuals become more of the responsibilities of the practice become increasingly more dependent on individuals of the practice, and two, having redundancies.
So to bring that caliber person in, Daniel, did you and Mila have to get to a certain point in revenue, profitability, or did you bring that person in on faith that the right person can help you get there? Which comes first?
I think it's that like desperate need, having like profound intent. Like there's nothing else that matters in the world than finding a good person and then giving them all of your attention and all the resources and the accountabilities to train them up, like be fully like clear out all of the omission errors that Mila and I were responsible for, and do it week over week over week to just build that first person. And then by training them and then supporting them, we do it then outwardly to successive people to eventually establish the infrastructure.
And to do that, because I know you've got young ones at home, as Alistair says, this is all reinvestment back in the business to get you to another level. But you have to create some margin to be able to do that, margin in taking yourself out of the chair a little bit, or in revenue where you can pay other people, or you can bring associates in. But again, that's all a big reinvestment. Or you just sacrifice for a certain period of time and just grit it out till you get there. What was it for you?
Well, it was, we kind of, actually, it was my provocation that Alistair then clarified, but it's you got to continue to build like the roadway infrastructure if you're going to build a city. So it would be grit, financial resources, time, and reducing our personal expenses to give us the spaciousness required in order to create those successive layers of management.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. That was awesome. That's perfect. That's what I was hoping to hear, and you just confirmed it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think my biggest challenge was I was never able to find that person. You know, we worked extremely hard to build that foundation, and like as you said, you need to build the roads first before you can build a city. And as we were building roads, you know, we would get roadblocks. Things would crumble, rebuild, and that's okay. I was willing to sit through and wait for that, but you know, I did have that intense desire to be able to kind of find the COO kind of role, the integrator role, to the point where I even hired Kira Den to help me with that specifically. And for those of you who don't know her, she's a pretty high level dental consultant. And so, but you know, I guess for me, it's partly the area, partly who knows, situation, circumstance, you know, and it came to a point where I'm like, you know what, it's not the right, that's what was missing, you know, for me. And I think had I had that, I would have been in a different situation. And I have to give a big shout out to you because, you know, now having been in Freedom Founders for 2 years, and following all the investment, you know, strategies and seeing the cash flow come in, a big part of my relief with personally and also within the business is just the fact that, I finally reached a point where the passive cash flow from my investments is meeting and exceeding my expenses and then some. And that has been provided such a profound shift in my attitude to the business and to my life. And so I cannot leave that out. That has been a major part of it. So
Well, that was the big turning point for me 17, 18 years ago, was realizing that if I just had enough of a base of operational income, it could be from dental practices, if that's what someone has. For me, it was real estate. I had enough to give me that margin to do what we're talking about here, enough margin to lift myself up. For me, it wasn't, to sell to a partner, or I sold completely. But I still could have come back. I just needed margin, right? I just needed margin. I think what I see is when people like you have admit, and other people, when you start to have enough margin, then you give yourself permission to take some quote risk that we otherwise wouldn't take, because we're afraid to take risk. And this whole group is about not taking unmitigated risk, but it's about being on a frontier and doing things differently than everybody else, and getting to whatever you define as, your 4 freedoms, your success, whatever it is that you want, and not following the traditional model, which that traditional model is if it's never worked before, it's not going to work in the future. And there's many people that are on that hamster wheel right now, at any stage of their career. Young people coming out of school with all the debt, mid-career, feeling desperate, and did I miss the last train out with the DSO, and I don't know what to do. And then enders who a lot of times I get on calls with them, and they've worked their whole life and been really awesome clinicians and done well with their family, and all that's good, but they've got nothing left, and they've still got debt, up to here. And it's like, that's a bad place to be, just because they just followed a model that never took them to where they wanted to go, even though they were clinically probably very, very proficient and did great work and served people on a very high level.
This is all extremely powerful, and we're pulling at strings that speak to critical concepts for all of us to just stay in contact with in our day-to-day lives. In reverse order, I not only want to point out that what Amit is saying is incredibly powerful and true, but as a tip to David, you've been able to do that in one of the most tumultuous real estate environments since 2006. And that's entirely because of the shepherd that is David. I can assure you that there are many others that have not navigated this period at all the way you have. And so I say that out of stoke and joy for the privileges that you've created for yourself, Amit, and the shepherding and leadership that David has and continues to give, as he completely dominates intellectually, in my opinion, and morally and ethically dominates his space. For those of us maybe that don't necessarily feel, we think that's wonderful, and it's aspirational for us. They want to be there. The privilege that is afforded us, that Amit speaks to, the confidence, the not having to deal with stuff that you previously had to deal with, that is afforded us when our basic needs are met, is a superpower. And it doesn't require $10 million. If you have the capital, beautiful. Figure out how to replace your income and watch your creativity, risk tolerance, enthusiasms, energy explode, just like Amit described at the kickoff of this call. Self-discovery, deepened relationships, because the fear is gone. The fear is reduced, and out of that comes our courage and our expansion and creativity. But it is not confined only to those that have said $10 million. It is also available to us, available to those of us that are still earning our income. And it is a matter of, as I've shared many times, the percentage of your income that you live on. If you're living on 99% of every dollar you make, you will be living in a heightened degree of concern, fear-based operating. If you are at 15%, your entire life looks different, and you look different. You lead with more power. Smaller things don't get to you anymore. You don't sweat the small stuff. You make smarter decisions. And you're afforded opportunities to invest, not just your capital, but your time and energy and attention in new, bigger frontiers and endeavors. This is available to all of us. we're speaking about replacing ourselves. One of the biggest breakthroughs in my life was understanding that there are things that I'm terrible at or that I hate. They were more often than not the same thing, that other people actually love doing. I mean, I was a grown adult when I realized this. When I hired my first bookkeeper, this is many years before Lila and I, before she changed my life, I couldn't believe that someone actually likes reconciling accounts. It sounds torturous to me. Just absolutely horrendous. But I did. I chipped away at it, but I was proud of doing it because I learned functional skills. I can do it. That means that I don't want to. The same is true in all aspects of our practice. If you are still doing payroll in your own practice, let it go. If you are doing the marketing in your practice, let it go. If you have a great system for payroll or marketing, great. Let it go and give it to someone else. Give them the system. Give them your magic. You cannot afford to do these things. And it's not just on a per hour spent of your time doing a case or doing clinical versus doing marketing. No, you can't afford the drag that it's placing on your well-being. Just because you've tolerated it for a long time says nothing about it being worth doing. It's not. What I'm trying to do here is to splice apart the component pieces of the magic that Amit is feeling right now. He doesn't have to worry about these things anymore. But because we continue to. That is not a qualifier. It's no different than putting my hand on the stove deliberately, burning my hand, and someone says, why are you doing that? Because it feels great when I stop. That's effectively what we're doing. We're all doing this. It doesn't make any sense. There are things that you are still doing that you should let go of. This gets to the point of partners. You can have a non-equity partner. I want to point out that Tom described his partner that is a non-equity partner. They have strong voting rights, but she has strong voting rights, but she's a non-equity partner. We can have non-equity partners in our practice, and they can be incentivized any one of the myriad ways that we've covered in great length. A critical point as well that runs throughout the conversation that we've had today, which I've absolutely loved, is the point of foregoing short-term benefits for long-term value. What Kevin's doing now is he's choosing deliberately in a reinvestment phase to forego temporarily the greater income that he could earn if he could just duct tape his ex-partner to the chair and force him to work. He could continue to make the same income plus more from having earned the rest of the equity. As part of his reinvestment, he is foregoing that additional income now to reinvest in capacity, the capacity of space, individual skill sets, team, equipment, etc., training, and so forth. Our need for money, see the same themes, they're all connected here. Our need for money, because we spend $101 of every 100 we make, which is almost what the national average in the United States is. National savings average today is 6%. Americans spend 94% of every dollar they make. Do you wonder why we spend our lives in therapy and medication and depression and anxiety? Whether or not these things are causative or correlative, they're definitely a part of our lived experience. And we're not doing what we can to lighten our own mental health burdens. I have partners. I have partners in my 2 practices, soon to be 3, by the way. We're opening up number 3 on November 1st. I'm going to go out there and I'll report live from the edge of my own frontier. I have 2 critical partners for me. And it's not just critical because they're Canadian, and it's not just critical because they're good guys. They're also docs. In Canada, I can't own a practice on my own unless I'm a dentist. They fulfill 2 critical roles: operations and clinical oversight. The rest of the stuff I can shepherd and handle, and I can do it from afar. As I've shared in the past, almost not a month goes by that I don't check in with my partners. Are you getting what you love me for? Do you want to let me go? Am I worthy of their partnership? Because they are incredible guys, and I want to stay qualified. If we can foster that same environment in our team, they don't actually need to have equity. They just need to have buy-in, and they are not the same thing. And you know that because you have seen or given away equity and not got buy-in. The difference between commitment and obligation cannot be overstated. I am committed. And my commitment is so compelling that I have yet to take a penny out of this business. Just like Kevin, I'm playing the long game. I don't need the income. What I need is the long-term asset growth. And that's exactly what Kevin's done. And that's exactly how we get the freedom that David has beautifully and provocatively invited us to splice apart. If you're still doing these things, stop doing it. Choose to give up a bit of income. It'll make all the difference in your world.
All right, that concludes this week's 2-week session of Inner Circle conversations around DSOs, exits, building infrastructure, mindset shifts, recurring revenue or passive income, and how all of this fits together in a model that drives the focal point of gaining freedom that you want, freedom based on your definition, how to get there, not going the conventional route, but taking sometimes contrarian viewpoints and using those to your advantage in a world that really puts a lot of emphasis on doing the same thing over and over again. If you need help with any of this, I encourage you to contact us, to engage with us at Freedom Founders. I love to take people down the path to freedom. As I always say, you're closer than you think.